Hello, Stuttgart. I'm sorry that I cannot be with you all today, but unfortunately, the pandemic has once again separated the old and new continents into their own worlds. I'm sure that we would have had an absolutely fantastic time debating these ideas together. I hope, though, that I'll be able to join you all in person for one of these future conversations. Let me start by thanking the NZZ and everyone who helped bring me virtually to Stuttgart this evening. I'm sure you are in very good hands. So, without further ado, let me start my talk, which I hope will help provoke an energized discussion. I'm 23 years old, and if I went and asked a group of bankers in Frankfurt for $50 million to start a company to build rockets that fly to Mars, I'd be laughed out of the room. If I met investors for lunch in Zurich and pitched them on an idea to build a new search engine that would rival Google and become $1 trillion company, they'd leer and jest at me. Who are you to think you can change the world? If I went to London and tried to raise millions of dollars to develop a pharmaceutical to cure aging, they'd quip about my inexperience and walk me out of the building. If I instead were to sit down with a venture capitalist in a Silicon Valley coffee shop with nothing but a ratted sweatshirt and a crazy idea, they'd hear me out, seriously entertain the possibility, offer to help, and encourage me to try regardless of whether they thought it likely I would succeed or not. In fact, all three of the above pitches, by similarly young and unqualified persons like myself, raised millions of dollars in California while being first rejected in Europe. I had this experience myself when I, a student at university, met with investors and pitched them on my idea to transform healthcare. It was bold and daring and almost certainly unachievable, but I was encouraged and enlivened with every meeting. It would probably not be me, but no one could discount that it might be some young coder in some corner, in some garage, who would revolutionize the way that healthcare worked. So they treated me with respect and gravity. If I failed, I failed, but it was worth it to take the 1 in a million shot. And therein lies the difference between the guarded conservatism of Europe and the electric, disruptive spirit of Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, and in America, there's this ever-present hubris. Nothing is impossible, and anyone can be the one to change the world. The first belief manifests itself in this wild exchange of ideas that are never stifled, no matter how crazy. The second belief allows for anyone, no matter how ill-educated, young, or inexperienced, to try and be given a fighting chance by the community. The combination of these two defining mantras of Silicon Valley have propelled it into the entrepreneurial world power it is today. And it's transformed California from apricot fields to the world's 5th largest economy. The hubris, it's undeniably misguided. 90% of all startups fail. But it's so pervasive and so infectious that it becomes ingrained into every member of the community until they all believe it themselves. You walk into a San Francisco cafe, you'll overhear conversations about designing supersonic airplanes or drugs that will prolong life, and it's insane, but it's beautiful. Nobody laughs at you when you dare to suggest you can accomplish the impossible. They cheer you on. It's a community of seriously deranged expectations. Yet it is precisely these delusions that allow it to succeed. The hallucinations of grandeur encourages young entrepreneurs to take daring risks. And in the world of technology, daring risks have become necessary to success. The other essential ingredient for a booming entrepreneurial culture is to reward and normalize failure. In Silicon Valley, failure is encouraged. Investors will prod entrepreneurs to shoot for the moon and fail rather than settle for less, for better or for worse. Before the era of technology, though, failure at business may have been seen as disgraceful and permanently blemished one's reputation. But now, failure is worn as a badge of honor, that you took a chance to change the world. In order to get the entrepreneurs to engage in these risky business ventures, you need to envelop them in a culture that embraces and normalizes those values. I would not have started my company if I had known that if it failed, I would have been penurious and ostracized. Whereas in Europe, risks are frowned upon. And failure is seen as a disgrace. Before seeking investment, you need a realistic business plan, a concrete and realizable goal that is de-risked as much as possible. Investors want to see real profits. Taking technological leaps is discouraged. Attempting novel business strategies advised against compared to the tried and tested methodologies. You all probably agree with everything I just said. The community, rightfully, fears risk. But that's not how technology in the modern era works. You need to take those risks. You need to brim with failure in order to achieve the impossible. And since failure is unacceptable in Europe, entrepreneurs will shy away from these big risks and lean towards mere incremental innovation. And it's incredibly personally risky for Europeans to found startups. It's common practice in Europe that if you serve on a board of a startup that then goes bankrupt, the taint of bankruptcy affects your personal credit rating forever. Mortgages will be denied, investors will be reluctant to give you a second chance. This low tolerance for failure prevents Europeans from challenging the status quo, only agreeing to found companies that will predictably become successful. The best technology companies, though, they're rarely predictable. The great new advances come unexpectedly and with an enormous deal of luck. While this difference in attitude to risk-taking between the old and the new worlds is not new, the 21st century's emphasis on technology has made this gulf in risk tolerance gaping. If this were still the early 20th century, funding bold risks that would most likely not pay off would be a misuse of capital compared to calculated bets on resource-driven businesses. Technology changed that equation. With technology, anyone in their garage can make a world-defining company with nothing but their laptop. Markets are winner-take-all monopolies, which means all that matters is who succeeds first. As the coronavirus pandemic taught us all, the laws of exponential growth mean that by the time the old competitors start to enter the market, they will have already lost. The simple truth is that the old European model of innovation is outdated. It's outdated for the modern world of technological monopolies. The age of building cement plants and drilling for oil is long gone. The nature of entrepreneurship has changed from one that rewarded meticulously planned execution to one that rewards high risks and lucky breaks. In order to win at the tech-driven business today, one must embrace risk and failure. Furthermore, the economics of venture capital are vastly different than any other form of investment. In other forms, the investor seeks to make a return on most investments in some way. But in venture, the managers understand that they will not make money on 90% of their bets. It is only because those 1 or 2 bets in each fund will so incredibly outperform that the whole fund itself becomes profitable. This model of venture investment does not work in a risk-averse environment. Many will complain that this is simply a problem of capital. America has more capital available to startups than Europe, so it's able to take more risks. That's untrue. It is not that Europe lacks the capital, but rather that they lack the courage to deploy it in mass to high-risk bets that will most likely not pay off. In 2019, European startups raised $36 billion. It's not a money problem. It's a spirit problem. Europe is not willing to engage in the risks that are commonplace in America. Yet hope remains. There's one place in Europe where the spirit of entrepreneurship lives on. Stockholm. Stockholm has produced more unicorn technology companies, startups valued at more than $1 billion, than anywhere else in Europe, with the highest per capita unicorn ratio outside of Silicon Valley. In Stockholm, you can found a new company in a week. The government itself, it sponsors disruptive thinking and innovation, offering tax breaks for citizens to purchase computers since the 1990s. With programming being the most common job in the city, risk-taking with one's career to found a startup, it's encouraged. One has a safe fallback in the event of failure. Not to mention the Swedish social safety net in place too. Embrace risk. Stop vilifying failure. And educate that anybody can change the world. Those three ideals would transform Europe into the future center of innovation. It's my firm hope for Europe to realize its latent technological potential and start making the bold bets it needs to remain competitive. Otherwise, the world will turn into a battle between the United States and China, leaving Europe to atrophy in its ancient traditions. Europe must remember a lesson it should know better than most. Learned over countless wars and centuries, anything is possible. Thank you for having me here virtually in Stuttgart. Again, sorry I'm not able to be there all in person. I know we would have had a wonderful debate about these ideas, but I hope I've triggered great ideas for the panel to continue this line of logic. And I look forward to hearing everyone's responses. I wish you all the very best from over here in America.